Good morning. I hope all of you guys had a lovely morning. Today we're going to continue our test prepping strategies. So now yesterday we talked about word meanings. Today we're going to actually try to go through a sample of a state test. Now, this is from 2016. These are real questions I asked on the test. So I figured this would be a great way to go over our strategies by actually using it on a test. So the first thing that I like to do when I come across a test is I like to read the directions. So in this case, they already labeled it right here at the top of the page. Thank you, Riley. And it says, read this passage, then answer questions 25 through 31. So that means you need to answer question 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. You don't want to skip a single question. So let's begin. We need to make sure that when we're reading this, we start with the title, because oftentimes the title is going to help us figure out what the main idea of this writing is. And I know a lot of you guys watched Mrs. Taranjo's video yesterday about the main idea. That's going to come into play when we are talking about our questions. And I want you to keep that in the back of your mind the whole time that we are reading this. So this article is called Start Your Engines by Ari Mailer. And I noticed here before I started that each of these paragraphs actually are numbered. So I'm assuming that a lot of the questions later are going to ask us to go back to a certain paragraph, and we need to remember how they're labeled. So let's get started. An empty highway stretches for miles ahead of you. The engine hums. The car hugs the road. What a sweet ride. Now, imagine a world without cars. It's hard. The invention of cars changed how and where we live. Take a drive back through time to see how. Now, before I continue, I noticed that they have a heading where it's bold right here. So now this part is all going to be about the need for speed. Before cars, people used their own feet or animals for transportation. People walked. They rode horses, camels, even elephants. Or they drove wagons, carriages, or sleds. Animals provided the power. Travel was slow and difficult. People rarely went far. They couldn't carry many goods with them. Inventors began to dream. What could go faster? What could haul heavier loads? Could they build a vehicle with its own source of power? Full steam ahead. In 1769, an inventor named Nicholas Joseph Cugnot found an answer. He was a soldier in the French army. He watched horses slowly move weapons to the battlefield, one cannon at a time. Cugnot had a better idea. He built a carriage. It rolled on 3 wooden wheels. On the front, he put a big metal boiler. It looked like a giant black tea kettle attached to a tricycle. The boiler heated water. That made steam. Pressure from the steam forced the front wheel to roll. Cugnot had built the first automobile or car. So I'm actually going to stop right there because this is telling me that the word automobile means car. They gave us a little definition there. Auto means self. Mobile means moving. Cugnot's invention could move all by itself, so self-moving. Cugnot's car was stronger than any horse. It was powerful enough to pull a few cannons at once, but it wasn't perfect. Its top speed was about 4 kilometers, about 2.5 miles per hour. It had to stop every 20 minutes to build up new steam. Steam engines also were heavy and noisy. They had a strong odor too, and people worried that boilers might explode. battery power. Other car inventors had a different idea for power. Would electric batteries work? The first electric car was invented in 1830s in Scotland. By 1900, electric cars were the most popular kind of car in the United States. They were quiet. They didn't smell as much. Now, notice if here I said United States, it just says US, but we know that that's an abbreviation for the United States. Yet they had drawbacks too. Most could only go about 30 to 60 kilometers, about 20 to 40 miles per hour. Then the battery died. Places to plug in and recharge the batteries were scarce. Electric cars didn't have enough power to push through muddy roads, and most were slow. The New York City police used bicycles to catch speeding motorists. Hitting the gas. In the 1800s, too, German inventors had an idea. It changed cars forever. Working separately, they each built a car powered by gasoline engine. Gas-powered cars could go faster, plus the cars had fuel tanks to store extra gasoline. Cars could now travel longer distances. The first gas-powered cars cost up to about $2,000. That's a lot of money in the 1900s. It took a typical person in the U.S. 4 years to earn that much. Only the richest people could afford these cars. Henry Ford changed that. He built a car that was sold for only $260. He sold cars so cheaply because he had a faster way to make them. Inside his factory, each worker installed a different car part. The workers stood along an assembly line. The car moved through the factory in a conveyor belt. It got a part from each worker. Within 1 hour, workers could put together all 700 parts of Ford's Model T car. Now, many middle-class families could afford to buy a car. By 1927, more than 15 million Model Ts had rolled off the assembly line and chugged their way onto America's roads. So, for that section, you normally would be sitting there snotting. And I just said them more out loud. So when I was thinking of something, I said it, but when you guys come to take your test, I want you guys to get in the practice of writing it down. And remember to make sure we only go about 2 snots per article. Remember, SNOT stands for small notes on the side. So make sure you're writing those little notes, even if it's a question mark, an exclamation point, make sure you're taking notes for yourself. So today in this one, we're only going to focus on the first few questions. We're not going to do all 25 through 31 today. I want to kind of talk through what my strategies are for figuring these out. So let's start with 25. In paragraph 4, the word vehicle means something that what? Okay, so yesterday we kind of did something similar where if we came across a word we didn't know, we had to kind of go back, we had to solve some problems, we had to think about it, right? So let's see. A says leads to question. Before I even get started, though, I want to go back to paragraph 4. So I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to look 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Here we go. 4. So let's read this again. Inventors began to dream. What could go faster? What could haul heavier loads? Could they build a vehicle with its own source of power? Okay, let's go back down here. So it says, leads to questions, takes years to create, moves people and goods, encourages people to invent. Wow. I'm thinking, since I go back and I look, and they've also used the word vehicle a couple of times in this article, I can figure out, even just by what I've been reading, what is the whole point of this article. And it's about vehicles, cars, automobiles. So in this, I want to go back to this and I want to say, does the word vehicle mean leading to questions? I know that's not true. So I can actually X that guy out. I know that one does not sound right. Does it take years to create? Well, if I go back in this one, it does not make much sense. Now, this whole section was talking about inventions. So it would be a good guess to kind of think that maybe it could have something to do with inventions. Now, could a vehicle be something that moves people and goods? Absolutely. So, when we come to this, how do we decide which one it is? Well, let's go see. So we are going to go up here, and we're going to figure out between C and D, which makes sense. So 4 says, could they build a want to invent with its own source of power? That doesn't sound quite right to me. Or could they build a something that moves people with its own source of power? To me, that sounds a lot better. So I think between the two of these, that encourages people to invent doesn't make much sense in here. So for that one, we can actually just eliminate that one as well. So we can get rid of A, B, and D. That's our elimination. So which one is left? C. Now, before we say that's the right one, let's see if that makes sense. So moves people and goods. Let's see. If I go back up here one more time, could they build something that moves people and goods with its own source of power? So I just kind of snuck it in there with the word vehicle. Could they build something that moves people and goods with its own source of power? Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great question. That's one that actually, when you read it, that sounds right to me. So we know for number 25, our answer is in fact going to be C. So these are just little ways, and we're going to work through this one again. And we're going to figure out which questions, and we're going to use some elimination. We're going to figure out how words make sense in our articles and what to use around it to make sure you can get the best answer. So thanks for joining me today, guys, and I'll see you on Monday.